Welcome to On Repeat, the weekly podcast giving you an insight into the minds of musicians with me, Ellie Rashid.
And me, Hattie Winter. This week, we'll be catching up with Jodi M Burn, who is a UK-based musician, educator, event organiser and drummer, which means that their counting is definitely on point. As a musician, they have played drums and bass with some bands such as Colour Me Wednesday, Personal Best and BYENAR.
We wear pink on Wednesday.
We're on repeat on Wednesdays. They've also done studio recordings, international tours, including Japan, Indonesia and Europe, festivals, including Kendal Calling and Madrid Popfest, plus support slots for Propagandhi, Lemuria and Juliana Hatfield.
That is a lot. And just when you think they couldn't do any more, Jodi teaches music privately, as well as running group music workshops. They've also delivered training on LGBT+, to youth organisations, and have volunteered as an LGBTQ+ youth worker with Gendered Intelligence and the Proud Trust. As an organiser, Jodi has co-run First Timers Fest, organised by DIY shows in London and Brighton, and co-ran Synth Punk Fest at DIY Space London for 3 years. Jodi started with Girls Rock London as a volunteer drum tutor and band coach, and has since joined the organising team to focus on the programme delivery, international collaboration and trans inclusivity.
One of Jodi's latest musical release is the self-titled debut EP by hardcore trans duo BYENAR and their single Nanas on Rampage by glam drag band Thigh High, which is actually what you're listening to in the background right now. So thank you so much, Jodi, for letting us play this.
So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you think of this interview.
We'll be talking about, how different people can really benefit from learning about music and being exposed to music. I think it's really clear that Jodi is really keen for representation in music and teaching LGBTQ plus youth and also just marginalised groups, which is really, really important, and definitely to get accessible workshops to all. It's really, really wonderful work that needs to happen.
Absolutely. I think sometimes people can take for granted how easy it is to just access lessons, like whoever they are. And Jodi talks about providing that safe space where people can just feel comfortable learning instruments, which is how everyone should feel, really.
Definitely. It should not be for the privileged few. Music really should be for everyone. I think we also talk a little bit about making music in quarantine and lockdown over Zoom, right? So get prepared for that, which is really cool.
A little bit of pots and pans.
So we also talk about the DIY pop punk scene. It's really a huge conversation and it's super wonderful.
Hope you enjoy it. So keep it locked and keep it on repeat with Jodi.
I've been involved with Girls Rock London since 2018. So I joined as a drum tutor in my first year at the summer camp that they had, and it's just incredible. I mean, as you know, Ellie, from doing a camp, it's a great experience. Getting to share your passion and your interest with young people is just amazing, and the fact that it's also it's not just focused on music, although that does take up most of the camp. There is also this element of trying to help young people just feel more confident in general, and there's zine making, and they make their own band t-shirts and things like that. And also because of this sort of social justice focus of the whole girls rock movement, We have workshops on race and on mental health and well-being and on gender, and so just to kind of kind of make them be able to sort of position themselves a little bit better in the world and prepare them a little bit for some of the struggles or joys that they may experience later on. So it's a really, really good week. I definitely recommend to anyone to get involved in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I've been trying to convince Hattie. Actually, I haven't been trying to convince Hattie. Hattie's kind of like,
I'm kind of
yes,
convinced, basically.
take me there. It's amazing because after that week, it was almost emotional because you're in such a great space, and it's almost sad that the world isn't like that. But there's nothing better really than doing a bit of mental health work, a bit of education on, like you said, whether it's gender or race, and then just music, of course. Music, like it's brilliant. It's a really, really great week. And something that was really interesting is that a lot of our young people seem to take a lot of what they learn from the workshops into their songs. So some of them actually were quite political, which was wonderful to see, because the age range is, Jodi, correct me if I'm wrong, 11 to 16.
Yeah, that's right.
11 to 16. Yes. So it was fantastic, really. And it's really nice because the volunteers get to do workshops as well. I'm hoping to do my first one on boundaries, both personal and within the music industry.
Very important.
And,
very important.
Jodi, you did a wonderful workshop as well. Tell us a bit about the one that you did over the summer. Last summer now.
I ended up doing, and it was a little bit last minute because we were going to get some of the people from Gendered Intelligence, who are a great trans youth work organisation based in London. Someone from them was going to come in and do a workshop for the young people on gender. So not just on trans issues, but gender in general and LGBT stuff, and just explain some things that they might have heard but not understood fully, or and also to help anyone who might be thinking about that stuff already in terms of themselves or family members or friends, in terms of how to support people. But the person that was going to do it was ill on the day, and I think maybe told us the night before. So so I was asked at last minute to deliver this workshop, which fortunately I had been planning a similar workshop for the camp that I was going to do the following week in Iceland. So there was an international girls rock camp that was happening the following week.
Oh wow!
And I had been asked to do, or I'd offered to do this workshop on gender for that. So I already had most of it, kind of sketched out, but then I had to finish it in an evening to present the next day. I think we had to swap a couple of workshops around so that I had this evening to prep it. But yeah, it was really, really good. So it was basically, kind of getting the young people to think about, why are we doing a rock camp for girls? Why do we not just do a rock camp for everybody? And really kind of try to see what they think about that, and why they would feel like they could go to a girls rock camp and maybe not a generic rock camp for everybody. And it's always surprising. I know people say this about young people a lot, but it's always so great when you hear how on it they are, and how sort of self-aware they are, and how much they understand about these things already. Yeah, especially when I think, when a lot of us were younger, we weren't introduced to things like, feminism, or, sort of thinking about gender in a different way, or the level of race politics that we have now, or, any of those things. And yeah, young people now are much, much better in that than we were. So it's always really, really nice to see. But yeah, I guess just kind of gauging that, and, getting them to come up with said that I, played guitar to some boys in my school and they didn't believe me, or these kind of experiences. Some of them have already had these sort of negative experiences of being judged because they're girls, and and then sort of going from there into, well, that's an experience that trans people have as well, that they're being judged on what they look like and what other people think they are. So actually it's a very similar experience. It is different, the experience of being trans to being a cis girl growing up, but there are lots and lots of similarities, and that's why why Girls Rock London includes trans people and non-binary people in that. And we talked a bit about sexuality as well, and most of them know all the terms already, and so it was really, really great. And we had actually, it was a really, really great moment straight after the workshop. There was one of the young people who was asking someone else some questions, and then they were like, "Hey, Jodi, come over. This person has a really good question." So I was like, "Cool. Hey, so what did you think? What's your question?" And this young person was like, "So if gender is like what society tells you are, rather than what rather than like what your body is, if you say that you want to be something else, like how would you how would you know that you're a girl if gender is made as like a construct? How would you know in yourself?" And I was like, great question. there is no answer, but that is the question to be asking. Like how, and they were obviously kind of having these light bulbs going off, like if the way that girls are supposed to look and how they're supposed to talk and how they're supposed to behave, that if that's not coming from girls themselves, that's not how they necessarily want to be, that's coming from how society's teaching them to be. If you get rid of society and you get rid of all those external influences, how would you know that you were a girl or a boy or not? And I was like, wow, that is very profound. And I don't know if I don't have the answer. I don't know if anybody else really has the answer to that. But that's definitely the kind of questions that we should be asking. And it's definitely the kind of questions to ask if you don't want the limitations that you might feel because of your gender, whether it's in music or in your relationships or in your job or at school or anything. Like, those are the kind of questions to be asking yourself and the world if you don't want those limitations to keep you back. So so that was a really that was a great moment to kind of experience, to know that the things that I'd been saying in the workshop had kind of gone in, and she was really like thinking very deeply, very quickly about those things. So that was it was a really nice moment to have at the workshop.
I feel like it's our responsibility as musicians to, whether you like things or not, to be aware of what's going on around us, but actually taking it to your, because I don't think I've ever had this conversation with you, Jodi. What are your musical preferences? So what are on your playlists at the moment, and what kind of music do you like playing the most? And you don't have to say like it's in a particular genre if you don't want it to be, but what kind of thing? Because I actually don't fully know this. I mean, I've seen you play once on the Girls Rock stage. That was amazing. I was I was blown away. That was brilliant. But is that the kind of thing you usually play?
I think what I I don't know. I've had a very like complicated relationship with liking music. I think since I studied music, which definitely made it hard for me to know what music I like and what music I should listen to because it's good for me to learn it as a professional musician. And I found that really, really hard to separate and to get back to listening, being able to listen to music just because I like it and not because I'm thinking in the back of my mind, oh, I should be paying attention to this because this is, you know, what I need to know
Tell
as a
me about
professional
it.
musician. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, and I'm still not there yet. And I spend long periods of time not listening to music actually now. But yeah, what I'm listening to a lot at the moment, I listen to a lot of just straight up pop music. Yeah, Charlie XCX's new album came out a few weeks ago, which is great.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think for me, a lot of I think because of I guess this sort of lack of representation of women and queer people and particularly trans people in music, that now that's something that I'm specifically looking for. So that's something that I'm just, you know, trying to learn more about and see more people who are like me as a trans person who are making music. So I put together a playlist recently, which is public on Spotify if you want to look for it. It's called Trans Britain.
We'll include it, don't worry.
Yeah, so basically I did a call out for musicians either from the UK or based in the UK who are trans or have trans members. Yeah, just because I didn't know that many. You know, I have some friends who play in bands. Yeah, some great bands like BYENAR is one of the bands that I play with, and both of us are trans. I did a tour with a band from Leicester actually, called Kermes. So yeah, if you haven't heard of them, Ellie's from Leicester, by the way, for people who don't know that.
Thank you.
Who knew it was such a musical hub? I thought it was only.
Oh yeah, I've been to Leicester quite a lot. There's there's quite a bit of stuff going on there. But yeah, there's a great band called Kermes who are from there. So you know, there are some people that I know already. But so many of the trans artists that I was hearing about, you know, were mostly from the US. So I was like, I want to know about ones that are from here, you know. So I started putting together this playlist. I put some call outs in some Facebook groups and on Instagram, and got like a fairly good response from that. And I think there's over 50 tracks from you know over 50 different artists of trans musicians, and it's the breadth of styles in that playlist is amazing, I think, and I love every single one. But there's like hardly any songs that are similar to each other. You know, there's such a, you know, variation of styles, but but like all of the artists are trans, which is great.
I get the sense that with you, like, music is power, which you know, I also believe in, because there seems to be a thread with everything that you do, that music can help sort of social change and, you know, transform and educate and progress. And I just love to know like your thoughts and maybe where that stems from with you, why you're so passionate about it.
Well, I think, I mean, in the most kind of obvious sense, I guess the power of being on stage is, you know, is a really big deal. Having a microphone, you know, if you know, not all musicians will have a microphone on stage, but you know, if you do, especially, you know, it's like you have a microphone and none of the audience have a microphone, you know, and you can say, you know, whatever you want to say. And some people won't want to talk about their own experiences, and that's fine, but a lot of people do, and that's really important for other people in the audience to feel seen and heard. If you know, the people that are on stage are reflecting their own experiences back to them. So I think there's definitely a lot of power that can be reclaimed. you know, in the sort of the most basic sense of being on stage, you know, having a voice, or at least a metaphorical musical voice, even if you're not you know, even if you're not a vocalist, that you know, you can play, and whatever instrument it is, and you can stand there and bask in the, you know, sweltering heat from the from the stage lights often, and and you know, hopefully have a great time. And I think that's, you know, that's a great experience in and of itself. But I think also, like, a really big important part of that is the community that can be built around that. That if you find like-minded people who are you know, also in the same music scene that you're in, and that could be other musicians, but also could be promoters, it could be I'm sort of exist in the DIY sort of punk community, so there's a lot of people who make zines, a lot of people who make their own you know, patches and badges and things like that, and you know, all these different people, photographers, producers, you know, there's all these people who are involved in music that aren't musicians, that are also potential people to you know, just to be friends with, or people who are going to have your back at some point. I was emailing someone yesterday who works at a music magazine about promoting these workshops that I've been doing, and she emailed me back yesterday and was like, this is amazing, and we really want to support this kind of thing that you're doing. And it's like, I don't know this person, and I don't know if this person is a musician or not. They could be or not, but their job is to work with a magazine, you know, and and she was just like, this is, you know, great, and we definitely want to try and support this. So there's people everywhere in all, you know, and even, you know, higher up in the industry. I know with Girls Rock London, we have some fairly big sponsors. So we have these, you know, big music companies like Marshall and Focusrite and Roland, who lend us gear for the camps. But there's, you know, there's relationship building going on, and I've had some conversations with Marshall myself about, you know, how to build on that relationship. And there are people in these organizations who are really supportive of women and queer people, people of color, you know, people with disabilities, like all these people who don't have as much access to music as, you know, the often men that we see, you know, who are the festival headliners and, you know, tour headliners and all the rest of it. So, you know, there are people there. So I think, kind of being, you know, being okay with who you are in yourself and really like sticking with that is, can be really important. And it can definitely help you find the other people who either experience those similar things or want to support you. It can help you find those people quicker. So I think there's a lot of power in terms of the community building.
That's a really wonderful answer, kind of like having a platform and being a platform.
I started playing drums when I was about 10, and a bit of guitar a few years later than that. And and then I went to uni in London to study popular music as a performance course, and I did 4 years of that. And then when I finished that, I kind of went into, you know, being a professional musician. I think I initially, obviously, I kind of had this dream of being, you know, either a session musician or in a band, you know, that was successful enough to just, you know, make enough money to live off just doing that. But even by the end of the course, I think I felt so kind of disheartened by just, I think just that felt like that was the only path that was presented to me, that I had to be this like top session player in order to be a professional musician. And I think by that point I realized that I was, you know, just a little bit too much on the introverted side to be good at networking, or to be good at this sort of constant, relentless networking that you're kind of expected to do as a professional musician. And yeah, and so it was just kind of like, I don't know if I have it in me to do that. You know, I really like playing music and I like it when I'm around nice people, but you know, I will have to spend so much time playing music and so much time rehearsing and so much time around people that maybe I don't like that much, just to, you know, and maybe that's normal for, you know, anybody who has a job is probably going to have colleagues that they don't get on with that well. But I was like, you know, I'm not into this schmoozing thing. You know, it would be nice to have, you know, to do a bit of that, but that's definitely not like my number one goal at this point. And I had already started teaching drums while I was still at college. So instead of getting a, you know, job as a, you know, washing dishes in a restaurant when I was 16, I actually started teaching drums to other students in my school who were younger than me. And I had the support of a music school that was based in a town really close to me, who I got guitar lessons with, and they were great, and they were really supportive of me trying to, you know, teaching and sort of being there, you know, sort of official, you know, half official, half not drum tutor, even though I was like 16. So yeah, so that was like an introduction, a really, really positive introduction to teaching, and I had a really, really good time teaching these, these teenagers that were just, you know, a few years below me at school. And so I always knew that was something that I wanted to do, regardless of how much like professional performance work I was going to end up doing. So when I finished uni, I got back into teaching, and basically that's been my main source of income since, which is absolutely fine. And I, you know, I like, you know, I like all my students, and yeah, obviously now because of lockdown, it's a bit more complicated. And also I moved away from London in September last year, so obviously I lost a lot of students from that. But yeah, now obviously I've been forced to do everything online. Otherwise, there's no hope of, you know, anything. So yeah, so I have my, you know, online students, and yeah, and then also these workshops that I've been doing, which are sort of in a similar vein to Girls Rock London and First Timers Fest, which is another project that I've run. So it's workshops in guitar, bass, and drums specifically for women and LGBT plus people. So yeah, and that, you know, I think just being part of this sort of very feminist, queer, DIY punk community, which is where the bands that I've played with have mostly been for the last few years. It's basically means that all the people that want to come take lessons with me are those people anyway. So, but I think being visible as a queer teacher of music is a really important thing, because I've had so many students who've said, you know, I always wanted to play drums, or I always wanted to play bass, and you know, I tried, and my parents said that I wasn't allowed, or you know, my, you know, boys at school made fun of me for wanting to learn drums because it's a boy's instrument, or you know, whatever it was. So they were, you know, discouraged from that, or they had a really bad time being forced to learn piano when they were 5, and they haven't played music since. It's a scarily common experience. And they're like, I always wanted to do this, but I never felt like I could. But I feel like I can with you. And, you know, that kind of knowing that you're that, you know, kind of you're making it feel that welcoming and sort of possible for people is, I guess that's what's keeping me going with this for sure. Like that's the reason why I'm doing it, because even if these people, you know, don't become professional musicians or don't even carry on playing music after they stop having lessons with me, like that's up to them, and that's also fine. But if they can go away feeling like that they know they can learn something new, and they know that, you know, they can have that confidence in themselves, and if they want to do something they can, because there are people who will support them in that, even if they've had bad experiences in the past, That's that's what I'm trying to. That's the point I'm trying to get people to.
But you know what? On a real note, listening to you speak about your the educational side of music, it's so lovely because I can tell how you really like feel something for it. I think the problem with music as a portfolio career is a lot of people use teaching to fall back on, and I can tell that you really think about it and use it as a part of your own craft. We have kind of flitted around the punk scene and a little bit, and Colour Me Wednesday, and you're touring, and I really want to hear a little bit more about that, and also the name Colour Me Wednesday. How did you get the name?
I mean, it's obviously because it's an interesting name. We get asked that question quite a lot. There have been various different, uh, you know, extravagant stories about how we came up with the name that we've told people. But it is actually the truth is it's actually as mundane as words that were picked out of a hat.
Really? That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I wasn't in the band when it first started, so I wasn't a part of that process. But the singer and the lead guitarist are sisters, so they've been making music together for their whole lives basically. And yeah, I mean the band started about 2010 maybe, as these two sisters and a couple of other people, and lineup has changed a little bit over the years. But the lineup that we currently have we've had for about 5 years now, and we released an EP, and the last album was with this lineup.
How many bands are you in? By the way,
This is the portfolio career.
Yeah, exactly. I think I've always played with lots of people simultaneously. Like when I was at school, I played with lots of people, so it's something I've always been really used to. I really like playing different styles. I've never felt like this one style is my style, and that's what I'm committed to. I've always felt like my playing has always benefited from playing lots of different things. So yeah, Colour Me Wednesday is probably the band that I've done the most with. Overall, like I said, we released an album a couple of years ago now, and that year in 2018 we did we toured the album, so we played a few festivals, and yeah, we did a headline tour in the UK, and we did this Japanese tour as well, which was I mean it was incredible. It was very mixed. I don't like sugarcoating things too much. Like it was hard in many ways as well. Like obviously just being with the same group of people for extended periods of time always comes with its own issues.
No one talks about that actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was obviously it's incredible to be able to go to somewhere so far away and play shows, and for people to be singing along in the audience. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm in Japan. Like, people know the words. What is going on? So I guess the first time that you have it, those kind of experiences where you go somewhere outside of your, your hometown or your home country or whatever, and people know the words, then it's always really great. So yeah, I guess Colour Me Wednesday has been the one that I've done the most with. I've been playing with BYENAR for about a year. I think about a year. We've recorded an EP, which will hopefully be coming out over the summer, hopefully. And yeah, there's a few of the bands that I've sort of played with as a sort of permanent member, I guess, and I've done a little bit of session work as well. So there's an artist that I played with a few years ago in Brighton called Neil Singh. Released his first single from his album that I played on. I didn't play on that particular track, but I played bass on a few live shows with him, and I played bass on some of the recordings. So shout out to Neil. Congrats on your first single release. So different bits of session stuff that have sort of come and go, and occasionally you'll get called back to play with someone again, and sometimes you won't, and so there's never a kind of fixed number of how many people I play with at any one
That's
time.
wonderful.
Obviously now
Yeah.
it's no one because of lockdown.
I'm impressed.
But
I'm so impressed that you keep on top of it all. I forget what I'm doing after I write down my to-do list. So impressive that you can remember so many different like styles.
I was going to ask as well. Obviously, you play in all these different styles and genres. Do you also write in them? Do you? Because you said for Colour Me Wednesday, you joined that band. So are you part of their writing process? And if so, how does that work?
Yeah, I think now on the last album we got to a point of being a little bit more collaborative, which was nice because it was before. But the previous drummer also wrote a lot of their older stuff, but then it became kind of the two sisters who were the songwriting team of the band. With the second album that we released a couple of years ago, I guess I felt like I could express myself much more on drums. That and there's also a few songs that started with drum parts that I recorded and sent to the guitarist, and then she wrote parts over that. So that it started to become a little bit more collaborative, which was great. But I think particularly for me, because I've mostly played as a drummer and largely, in a sort of session player kind of capacity, I haven't been let in on a lot of the songwriting processes. I have written some of my own stuff, some of which is online. So I can send you the links to that maybe afterwards.
Do it.
Yeah, I guess in terms of my own music, I mean the last thing that I was involved with writing that I released was with a band that actually was a First Timers band. We played at First Timers Festival in 2017. So the other two members of the band hadn't played, or one of them hadn't played any music at all, and they were the bass player.
Oh, wow.
And the other one hadn't played drums before, had played bass in a band before, but hadn't played drums ever before. So, yeah, and we recorded an EP way too long ago, and then just sat on it for like 18 months.
Wow.
But we finally put that on Bandcamp for I think one of these days that Bandcamp did where they were foregoing their share. So yeah, so we decided just to put it out and stop waiting for yes, there's some indie labels and friends who ran labels that we were kind of waiting to get back to us about stuff, and it never really happened. We were like, okay, let's just do it. So yeah, which is more kind of synth punky. So this is kind of like, this is my jam in terms of writing my own music.
All right.
So yeah, so having this very like electronic synthy kind of vibes, which is kind of appeals to my love of pop music, but also it's like very angry, it's very shouty, and it's very lo-fi. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, I guess having that kind of punky, heavier kind of element to it as well. So yeah, that band was called Andromache. Unfortunately, no longer going. I moved away from Brighton a couple of years ago, so we couldn't do anything else. But yeah, we recorded that EP, and we're really glad that we managed to capture those songs in that moment. And actually, my final production project from uni is online, which is also a synth punk EP. So that was the first time in about 5 years that I'd really spent time writing and playing an instrument other than drums. I was playing a lot of guitar, recorded some synth parts in, programmed drums for actually. I didn't play any live drums on that. And yeah, I got to collaborate with some great people. I managed to get Ren, who's the singer from Petrol Girls, to do some vocals on the EP, which was great. It was a really fun collaboration to do. So yeah, it's much more kind of synth punk, electro clash kind of vibes. So I think that's kind of where my heart lies in terms of my own music, which is just for me.
So I saw that you're doing like lockdown online lessons. One, how does that work? Like online, and like that's amazing. And then two, what is kind of your advice that you give to like your students? What's like the one thing that you try and help them take away, I suppose?
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of how it works, I mean, I'm doing it all on Zoom, as you know, seems to be where most people are doing their life and socializing and work now.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Do they
so
have to
actually,
have like the instrument?
yeah, so one of my students is a drum student, so and she has an electric kit at home. So
Oh, cool.
that's fine. But yeah, most of the other students actually are guitar or bass students, and obviously it's much easier to have one of those
Yeah.
in your house than it is a full drum kit or even an electronic drum kit, which can be quite expensive a lot of the time. So yeah, so everybody has their own instrument, which is just something that they had. A couple of people, I think, found out about the lessons and maybe like ordered their instrument.
Yeah. Like beg, borrow,
Um,
and stole, basically.
yeah, basically. And
I
it's
love
yeah, it's
that.
much easier to casually borrow a bass than it is to borrow a drum kit.
Yeah.
Especially when
That's so
everybody
cool.
is at home, so you can't even play when your neighbors are out.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, if you're
exactly.
playing drums. So that was yeah, but so I only have one student at the moment who's a drummer. But yeah, it's totally possible. I did a live stream actually the other day, which was I was teaching drums, bass, and guitar to Rebel Girl by Bikini Kill. You can watch it on Nicki Mirage Instagram. Not Minaj, Mirage. Um, yeah, who runs who runs Kiss and Makeup, which is a feminist music blog. Um, so yeah, so I did that live stream, and I just basically found stuff around my house that I could use to set up a kind of DIY home drum kit.
Oh,
Um,
cool. Yeah. I was wondering
yeah,
if it was like people had like pots and pans, upturned paint tins. That's very cool. Very DIY.
yeah. So not any of my students, but yeah, like I basically use like a pile of books for a hi hat, and then like a chair in front of me for the snare drum, and just like stamping the floor for the bass drum. You know, so there's because drumming is you know the core of drumming is about timing and coordination, and you can practice both of those things without without even that. You know, you can just do that just with your arms and legs. You know, so yeah, so that's kind of how it's worked with the workshops. I'm giving them homework each week, so I've had to learn how to make interactive PDFs. You know, one of these other essential musician
Hmm. Yes.
skills that you never thought you'd have to learn. You know, learning some graphic design stuff. You know, putting together these homework sheets. To encourage people to practice more and also go over some of the technical things that people often don't feel confident asking about, or music theory things. You know, if you're using a lot of, or they're hearing a lot of jargon in terms of gear
Mm.
and tech and music theory. And so, you know, spoon feeding little bits of those, you know, words and those concepts, and then giving them homework to fill out so they can make sure they remember it. For me, I think the main thing is if music is something you want to do, you have to keep enjoying it. And um, I think people forget that, especially people who aspire to be professional musicians. And anyone who's any kind of perfectionist will probably forget that because they're like, no, I need to be getting better all the time, and I need to be practicing all this, you know, technique and you know learning all of this theory, and you know I just need to be doing it all the time because otherwise I'll never get better. And you know they're doing that to the point, and I've been there. I've sat on the edge of that cliff, you know, particularly when I was studying music at university. Whereas, like, if I don't keep enjoying this, I'm never going to want to do this again. You know, it's possible to practice something so much that you're just sick of it. So I think if music is something that you want to do and you get a lot of joy from that, like, don't let go of the joy of doing it. And if that means um, not practicing technique for a while and only, you know, singing some really easy songs that you just really love, or, you know, playing guitar to your favorite song, even if, you know, you're not necessarily working on specific skills that are going to make you better. I think, you know, keeping it fun and enjoyable is really, really important. I think one of my tutors at uni, it was Gareth Dillon Smith, actually, who I believe you know, Ellie. Yeah. So he in one of his lectures, he made the point that we use the verb to play music, and even if we're professional musicians, we still play music. We don't work music. So I think kind of keeping that as an idea in the back of your head is really, really important, because I think if it's not something that is bringing you joy, then or sparking joy, as
very Marie Kondo.
Yeah, in the words of the incredible Marie Kondo. Then it's there's sort of very little point to doing it if it's not enjoyable for you as an individual making it. So for me, that's my number one. Absolutely. Like, you know, practice scales, you know, practice, you know, difficult stuff, whatever, you know, if you want to improve what you're doing, like, that's fine. You know, keep doing that, but don't do it to the point that you hate it, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really good piece of advice. I really resonated with what you said about earlier on, when you were like, it took me a long time to listen to music and kind of enjoy it, because I studied literature, and I think it took me like 4 years after my degree to like read a book and enjoy it, because I was just like so spent. You spent hours toiling over like the meaning and the words, and
you can't unsee that stuff. Or,
no,
you know, you can't
now it's
unhear
literally
it.
all I think about. But it took a really long time. Thank you so much for your time.
So much for having me. Yeah, it's been really nice.
Thank you. Lots of love.
Thank you so much to Jodi for coming and speaking to us in lockdown. We are going to include all of the links that you might need to find out more about Jodi, including their Instagram and, of course, their amazing Trans Britain playlist. Yeah, that will all be in the show notes, so you can keep that on repeat after you've listened to this. We'll also include some links about Girls Rock London, First Time is Fest, and everything that was mentioned if you want to find out more. But yeah, thanks so much to Jodi for coming on to the show. They have been an incredible guest. I've really learned a lot.
Yeah, wonderful conversation.
Indeed. I mean, yeah, just keep it on repeat. Give us a follow, give us a like, give us a rating.
Share it with your mates. You can, you can show your mates this new cool thing that you discovered, and they'll be like, "Oh wow, you know, this is your chance. This is your opportunity.
Chance to be a hipster."
Yeah,
you can be like, "I liked them before they were famous."
Exactly.
Keep it on repeat, and don't forget to come back next week for some more amazing guests.
Yes, another completely different one, no doubt. We like to keep it fresh.
Keep you on your toes.
We hope you've enjoyed the episode and want to keep us on repeat. You can follow, subscribe, and like us on your podcast platform of choice, and slide into our DMs on Instagram by following us at On Repeat the Podcast. All information will be included in the show notes.
On Repeat was made, produced, and edited by us, and the theme music is an original piece by Ellie's jazz band, Fujiyama, and wonderfully resampled by Dee, the producer, for the podcast. All of our guests give us permission to use their music. Thanks again for listening, and don't forget to keep it on repeat.